mai sì, cassù dalla campana, la campana, la campana.
Another form of dramatic singing emerging at the same time as these madrigal dramas were the interludes performed between the acts of a play. The most famous of them were those written for the various marriages of the Medici family in Florence. And it was in Florence that opera as we know it started. This was the beginning of that period in art and music known as the Baroque. The Renaissance had been a period of wonder, as people had discovered the world around them. In the Baroque era, they were becoming aware of themselves as individuals, aware of the world as a stage upon which every person must strut their time. Drama was to be found in everything. Buildings took on the look of a stage set with elaborate designs, carvings and paintings. The stage itself had discovered machinery for flying sets and artists. Composers were looking for grand, dramatic gestures. Opera, the grandest, most dramatic gesture of all, was an art form waiting to happen. The stimulus for its birth came from a group of Florentine academics and thinkers known as the Camerata Fiorentina. They met in the house of Count Bardi, and their number included the father of the astronomer Galileo, as well as the composers Jacopo Peri and Giulio Caccini. The group, looking back to ancient times for their inspiration, began to discuss how music and words might have been married in ancient Greece. We still know very little about the music of ancient times, simply because very little has survived. Although there is no evidence that the Camerata Fiorentina were right, they devised a system of word setting which involved a single vocal line sung in a free, declamatory manner and supported by a single instrument, what we would today call recitative. Their aim was to reflect the meaning of the words and not hold back the drama, as did madrigal settings. The first person to compose a piece in this new style was Jacopo Peri. Peri was a Roman, born in 1561, who had joined the Medici household in Florence as a singer and lutenist. He began his career as a composer when he was 21, writing the music for an interlude in one of the Medici court dramas. He also made a significant contribution to the spectacular Intermedi put on in 1589 for the wedding of Grand Duke Ferdinand to Christine of Lorraine. By the 1580s, Peri had become a member of the Camerata. It was Jacopo Corsi, Florence's leading music patron, who eventually encouraged him to write a new kind of musical drama along the lines he felt would have been written in ancient Greece. The result was Daphne, with a libretto by the poet Ottavio Rinuccini, which was first produced during Carnival in Florence in 1598. The score for Daphne has been lost. Peri's second attempt was Euridice, a piece based on the legend of Orpheus and Eurydice, written to be performed at the marriage of Henry IV and Maria de' Medici in 1600. It was from that date that the history of opera conveniently begins. Peri himself sang the title role of Euridice. The marriage was an important one for Florence politically, and the entertainments provided were designed to match the occasion. Unfortunately, the first performance of Euridice was not a success. Peri's colleague and fellow Camerata member Giulio Caccini, anxious not to be left out of this new musical experiment, wrote his own opera using Rinuccini's libretto and managed to get some of his music inserted into Peri's opera. Officially, Caccini had only been asked to write the music to accompany a play, and he wasn't best pleased. When it came to rehearsals for Euridice, he kept insisting the singers should rehearse his music, not Peri's. The result was an underprepared performance. While Jacopo Peri is generally credited with writing the first opera, there is one other person in Florence at the time who should be mentioned: Emilio de' Cavalieri. Born in Rome in about 1550, Cavalieri was, for a time, in overall charge of music for the Medicis. It was there that the three-act La rappresentazione di anima e di corpo, the portrayal of the soul and the body, was first performed in 1600. Here, time, with a capital T, sings of the transience of life. Because time flies and life is a wind, everyone should make the most use of it.
Il tempo fugge, la vita si distrugge, e già mi par sentire l'ultima tromba emire. Uscite dalla fossa, ceneri sparse d'ossa.
Cavalieri called his piece a sacred drama. Peri called both Daphne and Euridice a favola in musica, a story in music. Neither of them called what they had done opera. What they felt they were writing was drama with music, or more accurately, melodrama. It was only later that the word opera, which means literally a work, was applied to the form. But the form they had devised of recitative and aria was to change the face of music, its potential recognized at once by other composers. When Peri's Euridice was performed at the wedding of Maria de' Medici, in the audience was none other than the composer Claudio Monteverdi, there with his patron, the Duke of Mantua. Monteverdi had been born in Cremona in 1567, the son of a doctor. A choir boy in the local cathedral, he published his first compositions when he was 15. Hired originally as a string player by the court of Mantua, he continued to compose and became the Duke of Mantua's master of music. In 1607 he was commanded to write something special for a musical evening at court. The Duke wanted a piece that would outshine anything produced by the Medicis, and Monteverdi, who was 39, knew just what to do. He would write an even better opera than the one he had seen by Peri, and what's more, he would do it on the same subject. What Monteverdi achieved with Orfeo was little short of miraculous. Only 6 years after the art form had been invented, he produced a work which demonstrated how it should be done, a masterpiece in its own right, still with a place in the repertory today. His handling of the story is dramatic enough, but more than that, he uses the music to underline the drama and emphasize character. Furthermore, his orchestra is not simply a sound to accompany and support the voice, but an integral part of the opera's musical fabric. Orpheus, married to Eurydice, has returned to the woods, which once knew only his laments. Now they share his happiness.
Ecco pur che voi ritornò, care selve piaggiamate, da quel sol fatte beate, per cui sogni notte e giorno. Ecco pur che voi ritornò, ecco pur che voi ritorno.
Orfeo, an expensive court entertainment, was probably not performed again in Monteverdi's lifetime. The following year, Francesco Gonzaga married Margherita of Savoy in the social event of the decade. Once again, the entertainment had to outdo anything provided for the 1589 wedding of Ferdinand Medici. Marco da Galliano was asked to write Daphne, and Monteverdi produced Arianna, based on the story of Ariadne abandoned on the island of Naxos by Theseus. It was written at a difficult time for Monteverdi. His wife Claudia had become seriously ill while he was working on Orfeo, and had returned to Cremona. As soon as the first performance of Orfeo was over, Monteverdi rushed to her bedside, but nothing could be done. She died, leaving him with 2 young children to look after. Barely had she been placed in her grave than Monteverdi received a summons to return to Mantua and write Arianna. Time was short, and he had to put up with a lot of interference. There were demands for much more work on other compositions, and his Arianna contracted smallpox and died less than 2 months before the opening night. He later claimed that composing Arianna nearly finished him off too. Arianna was first given in front of some 4,000 people in the palace grounds at sunset. It was a smash hit, especially Arianna's lament, which was to set a style in operas for many years to come. Sadly, nothing of the opera survives other than the lament, but it gives us a taste of what the rest must have been like.